And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome here to Chase Race number 2 in Season 8 of the NNSCRA Mobil1 Cup Series. Here today, we are ready to continue on our race weekend at Chicagoland Speedway with the running of the EnjoyIllinois.com 300. Last week, we ended up having quite an interesting first chase race at Daytona, where it ended up being Dylan Poteet, a chaser, going to victory lane and, by consequence, taking over the points lead. Other drivers also came away with great finishes at Daytona, including L.J. Mills, Levi McIntyre, Tristan Folks, Zach Hamlin, and Charles Jackson. However, on the flip side, a number of drivers really struggled with Daytona and find themselves already having to try to claw and scratch their way back up to get into championship contention, including Ricky Falcon, Jake Rogers, Gene Stanford, and Joshua Collard. So, for some drivers here today at Chicagoland, it's going to be an opportunity to try and continue their quest towards the championship. For others, there's a sense of urgency already this early on in the chase to try and climb back up into points-wise contention to be able to still battle for the championship. What's going to happen here at Chicagoland? Who knows? But we end up having a chaser in the Truck Series go to victory lane yesterday in Sean Galligan. Will we see a chaser go to victory lane here today in Mobil1? We're about to find out. So let's get these cars rolling off. It's going to be 27 laps of racing here today. Trent Dunham lines up on the pole, former Mobil Cup Series champion, still looking for his first win of the season. And Trent would love to be able to win here today at Chicagoland. Alongside of him is Levi McIntyre, third in points, only 8 points out. Then Wolfgang Mason. This is his final season in Mobil Cup Series competition. He's already been to victory lane once this season at Auto Club. Would love to win one more time. And alongside him is Tristan Folks, who is fourth in the points, a total of 9 points out. As a matter of fact, let's give you a look at the overall points system coming into today's race. Dylan Poteet, with his win, is the points leader of the chase standings by 7 points over L.J. Mills, 8 points over Levi McIntyre, 9 points over Tristan Folks. Then it's 15 points. Zach Hamlin is back. He's 5th in points. Charles Jackson is 6th. He's 17 points out. James McLeod is 7th. He's 20 points back. Jessica Shelton is 8th. She's a total of 33 points back. 36 points back is Ricky Falcon in 9th. 10th in points is Jake Rogers. He is 43 out. Jean Sanford is 11th. She is 44 out. And 46 out is 12th in points, Joshua Collard. Here we go. Green flag out. The EnjoyIllinois.com 300 is green, and Trent Dunham is gone. Got a great jump there. Didn't even need to rely on that inside advantage he would have had to turn 1. He completely cleared Levi McIntyre by almost 2 car lengths before they even got to turn 1. Wolfgang Mason moves by for second. And now it's going to be 2 Brits battling side by side, Sean Galligan and Wolfgang Mason. Galligan, remember, won our Truck Series race here yesterday, and he's winless this season in Mobil Cup Series. He was winless in trucks before yesterday. Now closing in on Trent Dunham. It's going to be a battle for the lead between 2 former Mobil Cup Series champions right now. As here comes Galligan trying to get a run about a half groove lower through 1 and 2. And it basically stayed status quo the distance that time. Right now, it looks like the chaser on the move could be James McLeod in the 51. He's up inside the top 10 now. Looked like he was almost going 3 wide, but the battle's on for the lead at the stripe. That time, high line prevails, but low line will get the advantage going into this corner. Galligan goes to the point. Maybe looking to go 2 for 3 this weekend. Who knows? He could try going for a weekend sweep. As I had said in the Truck Series event, I was very shocked that it took yesterday to say it was Sean Galligan's first Truck Series win of the season. And I'm even more shocked to say that Sean Galligan doesn't have a win yet in Mobil Cup Series competition this season. These have been the 2 series especially that he has basically dominated in. But Season 8's just not quite been kind to him. Right now, though, he is 18th in points, so his finishes have been getting better. He had been mired down somewhere around the mid-20s near the middle of the season. So his finishes are getting better, but he still is plagued by not being able to find victory lane. Here's Danny Wells right behind him. Danny, who ended up basically dominating the race at Arizona a couple of weeks ago. Wasn't enough to get him into the chase for the championship, but nonetheless still trying to get his second win of the season. Danny Wells also coming off a victory in Snickers Cup Series last week at Daytona. So Danny Wells has been turning up the heat lately in the 2 series he runs, Mobil and Snickers, and now he's going to the bottom on Sean Galligan for the lead. Danny Wells comes into this race currently sitting in the 30th position in points, despite his win a couple of weeks ago. And he's looking for his second win. Wow, Sean Galligan actually got a nice run there through 3 and 4. The high line getting a little bit of an advantage here, and here comes the chaser, James McLeod. I told you that I saw him come to the inside line. Now here he is, following Danny Wells, his teammate out of Tweenix Racing over in Snickers Cup. He'll move by Galligan for second, and now maybe have thoughts for the lead. His teammate Dylan Poteet ended up winning last week at Daytona. Could McLeod follow it up and put another Turner car in victory lane for the second straight week? I believe McLeod's finish last week was 13th place at Daytona, and it sits him 7th in the point standings, 20 points out. I saw another chaser actually. There he is, Jake Rogers. So actually our 2 wildcard spot drivers are up inside the top 5. Rogers got wildcard spot number 1, and McLeod got wildcard spot number 2. Jake Rogers, though, had a very dismal run last week at Daytona, ended up finishing, if I'm not mistaken, back in the 35th position. Here today, though, doing much better. 5th place run right now for the number 19 Doritos Ford Mustang. Where's the rest of our chasers? I thought I saw one back here. There he is. Ricky Falcon, another driver who had a rather mediocre run of 29th last week at Daytona. He's up now to 7th, looking to go for 6th underneath of Stephen Pollard III. Ricky Falcon is 36 points back according to the live standings coming into this race, but right now he's working his way to the front. So a number of drivers that are quite a ways back in points actually up here at the front, trying to win or at least come away with a decent enough finish to close that gap up heading next week at Homestead, Miami. There's Levi McIntyre, who I don't know if he spun the tires or he just didn't get a good start when this race began, but he now finds himself in the 9th position. McIntyre trying to actually run down Dylan Poteet for the points lead. Right now in 9th, in order for him to take the points lead, Poteet would have to be running in 18th or worse. Let's find out where the points leader is. He's in 14th right now. Joshua Collard right there as well, another driver who really needs a good run. He actually needs to get ahead of Dylan Poteet here. Collard dead last out of all the chasers, and 46 points back already. That's almost a complete full race behind the points leader right now. Just ahead of Dylan Poteet is Jessica Shelton in the 9th, 13th place right now. Shelton had a 26th place finish at Daytona last week. And just ahead of her, another female chaser, Jean Sanford. Now working actually underneath of fellow chaser Levi McIntyre. Jean is currently 11th, might be 10th when they cross the stripe this time. Let's see if it updates. No, she's actually up to 9th. 9th place right now. She was able to get by both Wolfgang Mason and Levi McIntyre. Jean Sanford ended up finishing 37th at Daytona last week. So, right now, Jake Rogers, Ricky Falca, Jean Sanford, Joshua Collard, number of drivers who needed a good run, they're getting them, and pit stops are happening. Danny Wells, the leader, has hit the pit lane. Sean Galligan, Carson Gum, Jake Rogers, I saw Trent Dunham also on the apron coming to pit road. Pit stops taking place there on lap 14 of 27, right around the halfway point too, actually, so they'll be able to make it the rest of the way. Ricky Falcon is in, Rohit Vidarvu is in, as well as Jacob Lawler. A little contact between the 23 and the 14. As we'll jump back to Jean Sanford, who was the leader when this cycled around. Now here come more drivers to pit road. James McLeod. Oh, actually McLeod was the leader, my apologies. McLeod's in though, Pollard. So is Jean Sanford. Andy Timmons is on pit road with damage on the front of his 25. But I don't think we're under caution or anything. Jessica Shelton's in, Wolfgang Mason, points leader Poteet, Matthew Dalio, McIntyre, another chaser, and Tristan Folks. LJ Mills, another chaser. Fergus, Cassandra Renzi. Did anybody risk it and stay out another extra lap? I don't think so. Oh, caution was out! Caution was out! And Cody Lamas and Joe Davis had both decided to stay out. They're now coming to pit road to make their pit stops. There was a caution for Andy Timmons. I didn't think the yellow had come out, but it did. So Cody Lamas and Joe Davis, who had stayed out an extra lap, they're going to get to pit here under caution. And quite honestly, I'm not certain where this is going to put us as far as the running order. Cody Lamas could still be the leader. It may cycle over to James McLeod. I don't know. Trying to find the pace car here quickly. There he is. Let's see who pulls up behind him as the leader. Cody Lamas and Joe Davis have both gotten their cars serviced. But I don't know. Everybody actually was able to get to pit road this time. I don't think anybody's going to get penalized because everybody that was on pit road when James McLeod, Gene Sanford, Stephen Paul III, when they came down, I don't think the caution was out yet. And it looks like McLeod, Sanford, Farrell, they're all coming here to line up behind the pace car. I think that James McLeod cycles around as the leader. They're scoring him in third right now. Cody Lamas and Joe Davis, I believe, would be the ones that would be scored first and second at the current moment. They are, but I don't know for certain if they're going to restart first and second. If so, they got to get themselves up there. So right now, McLeod is the leader. I don't know if that's going to be official when we go back to green, though. But we do have to, though, look back and see what happened to put us under the caution. And if I'm not mistaken, based on what I saw with the damage on the 25, Andy Timmons could be the reason for that yellow. Well, we talked about how Joshua Collard was the lowest finishing of the chasers last week at Daytona. And this is going to be problems here. Joshua Collard is going to find himself in an even worse situation than he was in before. Teammates out of Michael Norman Motorsports going to get together here. They were rubbing doors, and then Collard just kind of hooks the 25 in the right rear, turns him up the racetrack and into the outside retaining wall. So Collard, who had won at Coca-Cola Speedway earlier on this season, been consistent, stayed up in the top 10 in points, made the chase. Boy, it's like a 1-2 punch. First Daytona, and now here at Chicagoland. There you see now the lights come out. The caution lights, I don't think, might not have come out at all had Andy Timmons' car had not slid down into the racing groove there, because it took the flagmen and the officials an awfully long time to put the yellow flag out. That wreck had already happened, and they didn't really wave the yellow until the 25 started to slide down towards those drivers that were heading for pit road. So, tough break there, though. Two teammates getting together, and Joshua Collard, I can't say it now, but it's possible Collard, he may be already eliminated from the championship if he can't get something together in the next 8 weeks. Anyways, that's what happened to bring out our first caution. Let's head back for the restarts. We're going to have somewhere around, I think, a little less than 10 to go. So we'll get ready to go back to green flag racing. Now, Cody Lamas and Joe Davis, they are not going to restart in first and second. What happened was they ended up making their pit service, but under pacing, James McLeod and a couple of others actually passed them before they got off of pit road. So they are going to restart in good positions, actually. Cody Lamas going to restart in 10th and Joe Davis in 11th. So that caution was timely for them, but they were not able to get off pit road as the leader and second place. James McLeod will actually be the leader. Then it's Gene Sanford in second. Caleb Farrell will be third. Stephen Paul the third, fifth. Then Wolfgang Mason in fifth. Dylan Young's now in sixth. Dylan Poteet now up to seventh. 8th, Matthew Dalio, Nick Alton 9th, then it's Cody Lamas and Joe Davis in 10th and 11th. Danny Wells, who was the leader before that whole cycle of pit stops began, he's now going to restart back in 12th. Cassandra Renzi 13th, 14th Jake Rogers, 15th Pichu London, Carson Gumbs 16th, 17th will be Levi McIntyre, 18th Sean Galligan, and then it'll be Mason Wood in 19th, and 20th is Ricky Falcon. Rest of the chasers restarting. Tristan Folks will be 21st. Got to go ways back here for Zach Hamlin in 29th. Charles Jackson, we haven't talked about him at all today. He's back in 34th. Jessica Shelton's 35th. Green flag's out, by the way. Joshua Collard restarted 39th, but he's damaged as we know. And LJ Mills restarts in 41st. Only one driver out of the race, that is Andy Timmons. Everybody else is continuing, but Joshua Collard is way off the pace. That green flag came out with a total of 9 laps remaining. 3 wide behind James McLeod right now. Wolfgang Mason going to the bottom. Middle line goes Caleb Farrell, and I believe Gene Sanford got a piece of the wall coming off of 4 there, but was able to keep her car up to speed somehow. Could have very well gotten run over by Stephen Pollard III. Here comes Dylan Young up the inside line with Turner teammate Dylan Poteet. Right now, Turner Motorsports looking really good. That 4 of their cars are up inside the top 5. The 51, 30, 31, and 42. And here comes Danny Wells back to up the inside. One of the dominating cars of the day. Restarted in 10th, this time by, he is scored in 7th. So he's picked up a lot of spots. I think he restarted back in 14th, actually. So he's picked up 7 spots in the last 2 laps. And he is coming. There's Joe Davis, who restarted 11th. He's already up to 5th. And now looking for more. 4th place underneath of Dylan Poteet. But all this going on behind James McLeod, who right now has opened up a bit of distance between himself and 2nd place Wolfgang Mason. Make that about 7 car lengths the advantage right now. Now it's closed up to about 6 or 5 heading into turn 1. But right now James McLeod looking good. And James McLeod trying to pick up his 2nd win of the season. And James McLeod trying to run down his teammate Dylan Poteet for the points lead. Meanwhile, back here, a lot of stuff happening. Wolfgang Mason getting awfully wide through turn number 4. Dylan Young appeared to have had done the same. And now here comes Joe Davis. Here comes Danny Wells. I'm telling you, if Danny Wells can clear these guys, he'd be the guy to try and run down James McLeod, I think, because he's been the strongest car of the day. Him and Sean Galligan, but Galligan's mired back in traffic right now. And look at Danny Wells. He's not going to waste any time. He's looking 3 wide underneath of these guys for 3rd place. Dylan Young stuck to the high side. Whoa! Danny Wells had to kind of back out of the throttle there. So did Joe Davis. Apparently a bit of loose condition in the middle groove coming out of 4. And slowly but surely Wolfgang Mason starting to run down James McLeod. But here comes McLeod bypassing the damaged machine of Joshua Collard. And Collard holds up Joe Davis. And Dylan Poteet. He held up the points leader. Gene Sanford, Cody Lamas, Nick Alton getting held up here as well. Levi McIntyre about to get held up. They got to find their ways around this 33. Looks like they're doing it. But oh my goodness, that's a traffic hazard there if I've ever seen one in Joshua Collard. Nice look at the pace car there, having no bearing on the outcome of this race. James McLeod continuing to lead, had no problem getting around the lap machine now of Joshua Collard. And his distance appeared to have grown a little bit now between himself and Wolfgang Mason. Battle on for 3rd. Dylan Young underneath of Danny Wells. A couple of non-chasers just trying to finish out the season with as many wins as they can. Dylan Young going to have the 3rd position at the stripe this time by. As meanwhile, James McLeod has just a little less than 2 more laps to go. He won the season opener at Daytona. Since then, did not get to victory lane. Just barely made his way into the chase via the 2nd wildcard spot. And now is looking for his 2nd win of the season. White flag is displayed. 1 more lap to go for James McLeod. Wolfgang Mason a long ways back. Something would have to happen to McLeod in order for Wolfgang to close up that distance. It's about 8-9 car lengths back to the Wolfgang Mason Dodge. Just got to be smooth through turns 3 and 4. McLeod very nicely through turns 3 and 4, actually running a slightly higher groove up through that middle groove, but it's going to be enough. James McLeod's going to win here today at Chicagoland, the EnjoyIllinois.com 300. 2nd chaser to go to victory lane in 2 weeks. 2nd Turner car to victory lane in 2 weeks as well. And James McLeod, his 2nd victory of the season, hasn't won since the season opener at Daytona. What a victory there for James McLeod. I said back at Daytona that when I talked to him, he said, "This is our season." He thought back to that time when he just barely missed out on the championship to P2 London in what was an overtime race at Zenjoltis. He said this season's all about redemption, and it looks like he is definitely on the warpath for such a case to make himself Mobil1 Cup Series champion. What a great race here today. And that pit stop, that pit strategy, and that timely caution, I think, was a big part of what helped James McLeod here today. So he'll move up through points, no doubt about that. But let's find out where the rest of our chasers end up finishing. Dylan Poteet came away with 6th place today, so that's enough to still hold on to the points lead, no doubt about that. Nice consistent run after his win at Daytona last week. Gene Sanford is going to finish out the day in the 9th position, so only 3 chasers finishing inside the top 10. Levi McIntyre was 12th, Ricky Falcon was 14th, Tristan Foltz was 17th, Charles Jackson finished in 19th, and LJ Mills, who actually, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he restart back in 41st when we went back green? He made his way up to 20th, so not the best of finishes, but considering that you were restarted back in 41st, that's a pretty doggone good finish for LJ Mills. Find out where the rest of the chasers end up finishing here. Boy, you gotta look a long ways down before you find Jessica Shelton in 29th. Jake Rogers, who was up inside the top 5 and near the beginning of the race, 33rd officially finishing tonight, or today, I should say. 35th place for Zach Hamlin. Sean Galligan, oh my goodness, all the way back in 38th position. Man, and he started up way near the front. He's not a chaser, but still, we saw him battling up there at the front. I don't know what happened at the 64, but the rest of our chasers, basically the only other one was Joshua Collard, finishing in the 41st position, 1 lap down. But man, Jake Rogers and Sean Galligan, that was a number of drivers we saw up at the front. And I don't know what exactly happened to them. I almost wonder if maybe they might have gotten held up behind Joshua Collard during all that, all that backing up, trying to get by the slower, damaged lap machine. Could very well have been. But I think a couple of drivers may actually move themselves back up into competition for the championship. But don't know what the points are going to look like until we end up showing them to you. Next week we head to Homestead Miami Speedway, but we still got to finish out this race weekend at Chicagoland with the second chase race of the Snickers Cup Series, and that's going to sure be a wild one as well. Kind of interesting, too. We end up having a chaser in trucks win here at Chicagoland in Sean Galligan, a chaser in Mobil win here in James McLeod. Will we actually have a chaser go to victory lane in the Snickers Cup Series race and advance themselves into the next round of the chase system? I don't know, but the way the trend's going, looks like that could be the case. So, hope you guys enjoyed today's race. Be sure to give this video a like, subscribe, and become part of the crew today. Here comes your official full finisher results, overall point standings, and rookie points, as well as your chase points heading into next week. Next week, we pack it up and head to Homestead Miami Speedway, so hope you'll be tuning in for that. Also, be sure to follow the NNSCRA on social media. Facebook and Twitter links are in the description, as you've been watching a production of the NNSCRA, offline racing at its best. Whoa, look out! Oh, what a save! Dougie Shears just got turned by the lap machine of Charles Sanford, but now he's got left side damage. But he still opens up his distance. He still keeps a distance between himself and second place McCurry. But all that ground he gained, he just lost right there. But what a save!